I cannot believe that I officially get to say this, but I am an author. Little 10-year-old me writing and binding her own fantasy novels with painter's tape and cardboard would be so proud because my debut novel, The Crown Prophecy, is coming out on October 28th. Pre-orders are open now, and I wanted to sit down and chat with you guys about all the details, the process, answering all of your questions, and also maybe just screaming a little bit because I pushed the live button this morning for pre-orders, and it's only been a couple hours and 55 incredible human beings have already ordered the story and want to read my words, and I could just cry. I mean, I have cried. I have cried several times today. So I don't get too off track, I did write myself a little like bullet list of what I actually need to tell you guys instead of just screaming, crying, throwing up, which is what my instinct is right now. So first of all, I will show you. Here is our beautiful cover. Lots of little Easter eggs in here. I worked with some designers at Mibble Art, I think is how you pronounce it, to make it perfect. I'm so happy with the way that it turned out. This actually is not the final copy. The final copy I added wisteria on the back here, so it will be even prettier in person for you guys. Little look-see inside. That's my name. We've got our map, very exciting. And then I did add some little illustrations on the insides. One of the things that I like the most is at the beginning of every chapter, you have this, which I think turned out so beautifully. I designed that myself. All the scene breaks are little crowns. And in the back, we've got acknowledgements, my little author profile. I can't believe that I'm holding this in my hands right now. It is a cozy romantasy, but it's still got high stakes. Our main character, like I said, is a baker, so you can expect a lot of atmospheric scenes in the kitchen, making pastries. The story takes place in fall, so it's a very cozy read. I'll read you the little summary on the back in case you don't already know what this is about from me yapping about it consistently for like a year. Mundane baker Quinn Perry wasn't born with a gift, unless you count her skills with a pastry bag. When she's hired into the kitchen of the magic-wielding royal family, she thinks the most challenging part of her new routine will be hiding her position from her magic-hating mother. She certainly doesn't expect to get entangled in the affairs of the crown prince. Then Prince Evander surprises her. Instead of the selfish, arrogant royal she expected, he's witty and kind and shares her love of reading. Quinn finds herself more drawn to him than she should be, especially considering he has a duty to preserve the magic of the kingdom by marrying one of the wielders competing for his hand. But the contest is masking a darker truth, and the duo finds themselves working together to decipher a cryptic prophecy that might be their only chance of saving the kingdom. Battling a tidal wave of forbidden feelings, Quinn and Evander are left to reckon with the possibility that the mystery that binds them may also be the ruin of everything they love. Here's the art I commissioned from Chicken Doodle on Instagram of Quinn and Evander. I can't believe this all started as just like words in my head, and now it like is physical. It's just wild to me. Like I said, it will be officially out on October 28th, but it is available for pre-order now, and I wanted to tell you guys about the different formats that you can get it in. So your first option is to get a signed copy through my website, or rather the book's website. It is thecrownprophecy.com. Those are $25 plus free shipping, which is just the base cost of the book plus shipping and like an envelope. Those are unfortunately only available in the United States because it's so cost restrictive to ship out internationally myself, but I am happy to share that international readers will be able to get the regular unsigned copy through Amazon pretty much anywhere in the world, which is very exciting. So you can pre-order through Amazon. Of course, I'll leave all the links down in the description. You can also pre-order through Barnes & Noble, which is very cool to see my book on Barnes & Noble. In addition to physical copies, there is also an ebook version that is pretty much available wherever ebooks are sold. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kobo, Apple, Overdrive, Hoopla, all the places. The non-signed copies will be $18.99, and that ebook is $9.99 pretty much everywhere, I think. The universal links to get both the physical and the ebook will also be on the website, and the website also has some other stuff. There are fun things like the character art and a playlist for the book, and also some things that are a little bit more necessary, like trigger warnings, so you can check if you're sensitive to any of the content in the book. It is a cozy romantasy, but it does deal with some darker themes themes, so read with caution if you are sensitive to any of the things on that page. And there's also a clean romance page skip guide in there. So one of the questions that I've gotten the most often is, does it have spice? And the answer is yes. It is an open door romance. I think there are 4 spicy scenes, and if you are not into that, that's totally fine. I have made a guide on my website that tells you exactly where to skip and a summary of what happens in those pages so that you're not missing any of the plot. So you can absolutely read this as a clean romance, but for my fellow girlies who loved like ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, it does have some spice for you. If budget is a restriction for you, I do still want you to be able to read this story, so I have a couple of other places where you can get it. The first one is that until the 25th, there is a giveaway going on Goodreads. So I'm giving away 5 copies of the book on Goodreads. I'll put the link down in the description so you can enter if you would like to enter there. And if you're a part of my Patreon, which starts at $5 a month, you do get the ebook for free in my Patreon as well, alongside, of course, all of the other exclusive video content and printouts and all the things that we share with our friends over on Patreon. So with all of that exciting stuff being said, I am going to answer some of your questions about the book, about the process of publishing. The first question is, will there be more books? And yes, this is the first novel in a duology, so there will be a second one, which I'm very excited to write. I already have it all plotted out, probably not for at least a year, because doing this and also juggling work and motherhood was a lot. But yes, this is a duology, and I have plans for several more stories after I have just really fallen back in love with writing. Like I said, I did it all the time as a kid, and I was always submitting my stories to the Young Authors Fair down in Orange County, and it was just kind of like my thing. And I was an English major, but then after school, I had written so much and then immediately went, full-time into the workforce after having multiple jobs while I was in college. I just kind of got burnt out, but I've really reconnected with my love of it, and I don't have any plans to stop writing anytime soon. Ooh, I like this one. What are the tropes we can expect? I actually have a list in my notes. So some of the tropes you can expect from this story, you can skip ahead if you don't want spoilers, are found family, the classic who did this to you, grumpy sunshine in 2 of our main side characters, mutual pining, forbidden loves, and spoiler, fated mates. What was your favorite part of the creative process? Character development, conflict, plot? I think my favorite part of writing this book was writing the banter between Quinn and Evander, because they're both a little bit sassy, and their preferred method of flirting is like witty banter at the other's expense, and I had so much fun. The grilled cheese scene, which if you read it you will know, or the cheese toasty scene if I'm using my book terms so that it didn't sound too anachronistic, I guess, is probably my favorite one that I got to write. That or the hallway. Will it be available to buy in the UK? Yes, everybody should be able to get it through Amazon. It will, I'm pretty sure, ship to any country, so that's very exciting. That was something that was really important to me when publishing this. I wanted to make sure that all of you guys would have access to it, and of course everybody will have access to the ebook as well. Will there be an audiobook version? Gosh, I would love for there to be an audiobook version, but writing and publishing a book is incredibly expensive, so I will have to save that for later down the line. I won't say yes or no. I personally have my fingers crossed. I have some friends who are in the voice acting community who've pointed me in the direction of some lovely folks, but it is just a financial thing, so it will depend. Okay, how spicy are we talking? Bell pepper or ghost pepper? I'd say like a jalapeno. Like it's pretty vanilla, but it is explicit and open door. Enthusiastic consent, of course, always. How did you balance writing with family? This was a tough one for sure. Obviously, doing something like this took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. I actually started it as a NaNoWriMo project, so I was mostly writing after the kids went to bed, and I had no idea if it would ever see the light of day. I had no plans to publish it. I was just purely doing it for me, which is really exciting because I got to write the exact story that I wanted to write. I wasn't worried about what would sell or like marketing, what agents were looking for, what publishers were looking for. I just wrote like me in a book, and that was really fun. But as I continued down the process, I fell more and more in love with the work, and so I started to work on it a little bit more here and a little bit more there. I let it take up some space in my work life, some of the hours that I had dedicated to working, even though I still didn't know if I was going to publish it. I had months where it was almost all I thought about, and then I had months where I left it alone and let it breathe and let my beta readers do their thing. I don't really think that there's a right or a wrong answer. I just tried to keep in mind the that it was supposed to be fun, and that if it was stressful, I could always take a break. How long is it? It is 350 pages, just under 100,000 words. Will you be publishing a hardback and paperback? So right now we just have the paperback, but again, I would love to do a hardback special edition with like pretty sprayed edges and everything if this goes well. But again, it's all like a financial thing. Hannah asked, how much do authors actually make from their books? I've always been curious. Let's see, I actually have this pulled up. It is shockingly low. It looks like at the most in the US, I would make $4.99 for the $19 book. And the rest of the money goes towards like printing and distributing it. It's fine with me. I did not intend to make money off of this ever. I have definitely poured more money into it than I will ever make from it, but that was not the point. The point was that I wanted to share the story with people. And again, like I said, I got to write exactly what I wanted to write. Did you get a literary agent or did you self-publish? So I will share the whole story of this because it's been a journey. When I finished my, I think, third draft, I started the querying process. And the querying process is where you write a one-page letter about your story, the genre, the word count, a short plot synopsis, your credentials, and you send it out to literary agents who represent authors that write in the same genre as you do, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait for months. And I got very lucky in terms of interest. I had a lot of interest in the book. I had lots of full manuscript requests from agents and even a couple of small indie publishers. But what I ultimately ended up finding out is that not a lot of agents or publishers want to take on the risk of a duology for a debut novel. It's a financial risk to print a book. And so if you're agreeing to two upfront, that's like kind of scary for some publishers, and it's a lot harder for agents to sell. So I came to this crossroads a few months ago where I was like, well, I've gotten a revise and resubmit request from an agent to turn it into a standalone where there's no threads hanging open at the end of it. I can either nerf the story and make it into one book, or I can self-publish. And I thought about it for a very long time because traditional publishing is something that I feel like you're told you have to do as an author to be like legitimate. But I decided that I could not do Evander and Quinn's story justice in one book, and I wanted to write the second one. So I actually pulled my full manuscript from all of the agents and publishers who had requested it, which I still wonder a little bit if I'm crazy for, because getting a full manuscript request is like a very exciting thing, and typically like you want to wait and see if somebody picks it up or whatever. But I actually pulled all of my submissions and I decided to self-publish it, and I did so through the service called Ingram Spark, which has been a lot to learn, kind of confusing at times, but also overall a very good experience. I really like that they gave me the option to distribute my books to other places, so not only is it available on Ingram Spark, but it's also Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, etc. And then I did the ebook through a company called Draft to Digital. The downside to distributing widely to different merchants is that you have to give like a wholesale discount. So for example, I think the minimum in the US is like a 40% wholesale discount, which obviously like makes that $4.99 profit much smaller because it's 40% off of the total cover price, which is $18.99. That's getting into logistics, but basically I just wanted to get the story into people's hands, so I didn't particularly care about that. I got samples from 3 different publishers, Amazon KDP, Lulu, and Ingram Spark, to determine quality, and I ended up going with Ingram Sparks because of the distribution and because the print quality was way better than Amazon KDP. Amazon KDP, not great. I did not love it. So here are all 3 copies. This one is the one from Amazon KDP, and I just did not like the print quality. The color is a little bit green. It's a little bit mottled, not super clear. Then I tried Lulu. I actually like the print quality on this one, but it feels a little bit washed out to me. And also there was some error with like the centering of it, and I didn't like that margin of error. So what I ended up going with is Ingram Spark. It's definitely the best quality. The colors are nice and vibrant, lots of contrast. Everything's nice and centered, and I just love it. Which leads me into the next question, which is, what is one thing that you have learned about publishing a book? And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is how much time you have to plan for logistics. Things like formatting it correctly and getting files in the exact right format that the program will accept, and ordering copies and checking them thoroughly, and then editing your files and reordering the copies, and then doing things like buying your ISBN and enabling things for distribution and making sure it fits all of the requirements for all of the platforms, and waiting to hear back and waiting for the proof to be processed. And it's just a lot. I definitely thought when I was done writing the book that I was like almost at the finish line, and that was not true at all. The publishing process is a lot. Somebody asked what tools I used to write the book, and it's kind of pertinent to this conversation. So to actually write it, I used the writing software called Meet Motif. I think it's pretty new. I think it might have come out just last year, but I really liked it because it gave me the opportunity to not only like write my story, but there are like different sections where you can put in, like there's a character section, and you put your character in, and then it'll give you these like cards, and the cards have kind of prompts on them. So it's like physical description, childhood wound, core desire, enemies, like all the things. So you could really fill it in, and you could do the same thing with like settings and important objects. I broke mine down chapter by chapter and like did the whole outline first before I ever started writing. And I think now they've also added a feature where you can like pick what story format you want to use. So you can use like hero's journey or the 3-act structure or save the cat or the 5-act structure or whatever. And then again, it like gives you those cards to like fill in different things, which I think is really cool. We'll definitely be using that as I go into writing the second one. To format the book, I used, oh gosh, what was it called? Oh my gosh, more orders are coming in, you guys. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much. I can't wait. To format the book, I bought a software called Atticus that was very helpful and definitely worth the money, especially because it helped me put in like the gutter sizes, which is basically like an additional margin on the inside of every page. So it changes like depending on if it's left to right to make room for like the binding. So that was really helpful. The cover was designed by a service called Nibble Art. It is of course no AI. I was very, very careful about that. It is all made by human designers. It's photo manipulation. And I just think they did such a great job. I did have a little bit of trouble getting the correct file type from them. So that was the only frustrating part. But I did really like the cover. I actually ordered 2 cover concepts because I wanted to see which one I liked more. And the other one, I'll actually share it. I'll put it right here because it was also really beautiful. And it would be fun to tweak maybe for a special edition or something, but I ended up going with this kind of like text-centric design because this is what is selling in the genre right now. And so I figured I will let all of the publishers who have done a lot of market research do that for me, and I will just take advice from what I am seeing in successful books. I also really wanted the cover to show like the cottagecore aspects of it. So things like the color in the background, the flowers, all the little pastries that are tucked into the frame. I really wanted it to be a little bit different than kind of like a dark sword fighty type fantasy, which I also love, but that is not what this is. A few other services I used were Inkarnate to make the map, which was really, really fun. I also used Word Hippo quite a lot. Best online thesaurus you could find because it also shares like similar words or like adjacent words. That really helped me hone down on stuff. I used Pinterest a lot for aesthetic inspiration, for names, honestly for motivation to keep going when I got frustrated, because I always felt pumped up after adding a few things to my little Crown Prophecy board on there. And then I also used Canva to help design my little like author page at the end and to help me with the chapter heading layout. What advice would you give to someone who's afraid of chasing their artistic pursuits? I would say do it for you. Take the pressure completely off, and just, even if you think you might down the line, act like you are never going to show it to anybody. Create and then take a break and come back to look at it and see how you feel. Because if you create knowing that you're going to share it and potentially be judged for it, I think there's a lot more pressure. Whereas if you just start creating for yourself, you get to make what you want to make, and I think it turns out more authentic that way. How did it feel when it really sank in? I will let you know when it happens because it still feels very surreal. I think when people start getting physical copies in their hands, it will probably start to feel more real to me, and like when reviews start coming in. If you read the book and you love it, I would so appreciate a 5-star rating or review on Goodreads or on Amazon, and that makes a huge difference in whether or not the story reaches people who aren't like following my YouTube channel. It helps in the algorithm for those platforms, but it still feels very surreal to me. I will say I cried when I opened it up and held it for the first time. I was like, waterworks were happening. This is so many words. And I wrote all these words and now other people are gonna read them. Are you nervous about other people reading this spice? Absolutely. I think if anybody says that they're not, they are lying. I am hoping that anybody I know in real life uses that clean romance page skip guide and I hope my family never reads it. So 2 questions that are kind of along the same line are the chapters very long, and is it an easy read for somebody who's not super into reading? The chapters on average I think are 14 pages long because it's 25 chapters and 350 pages. And I would say it's a pretty easy read. It is not that long. It is not by any stretch of the imagination high fantasy. It is definitely like low fantasy, romance, not complicated language. I think it would be pretty easy for anyone to read. Did your degree in English literature have an influence on how you wrote or styled your novel? Yes. I mean, I definitely think that having an understanding of language and story structure and themes and characterization obviously just kind of organically make their way into the work. I will say that this is definitely very different than anything I read in school, because in school we read a lot of classics. I read a lot of Faulkner, and this is not. But I was surprised at how easily a lot of it came back to me. And it was really fun doing some more creative writing, because a lot of what I did in school was more of like essay, commentary style stuff. I'm definitely grateful for the background, because I think that it helps with grammar and vocabulary and, like I said, story structure. But imposter syndrome is crazy. I literally, like, pressing the button this morning to set it live for pre-order, I was like, who am I? Like, who am I to think that I can do this? And I was like, little voice in the back of my head was like, girly pop, you literally have a piece of paper that says you can do it. Like, it's a fictional book. It's not rocket science. It's not like you're performing brain surgery without knowing how. But I still, you know, I'm like, oh gosh, does it sound like a real book? Does it feel like a real book? But the response from all the people who've read it so far has been really, really lovely. I had quite an exhaustive team helping me polish it to being publishable. I guess I could talk about that process a little bit. So after I finished writing it, I did a like critique partner swap with another author, Christy. If you're watching this, thank you so much. And we swapped stories and read each other's through and made commentary and pointed out plot holes and dealt with some of the like high level stuff. And then I made some revisions. I closed all the plot holes. I read through it a few times myself. And I think when I was like 2.5 drafts in, I put out the call for beta readers. And so many of you guys were so kind offering to beta read. I had a very hard time at choosing my team, which was like, I think 5 people at first. And I tried to focus on people who had like credentials in either publishing or English. There was like a librarian, there was an English teacher, but also somebody who read it was a professional baker. And so she was able to go through all of the baking scenes with a fine-tooth comb and let me know if I had made any errors in like the process for making croissants or making cardamom buns, etc. Then I did a whole nother draft. So at this point we're on draft 3.5, 4, depending on how you count it. Sent it out to more beta readers, got more feedback. At this point, I also worked with a developmental editor who was helping me kind of hone in on the story, trim it down to what it needed to be, make things really clear. Then came another round of rewrites, and finally I had it line and copy edited. So this was for like sentence flow and clarity, commas, grammar, punctuation. One thing that I did wrong in my entire manuscript that I'm very embarrassed about is I used dashes instead of M dashes. So things like that had to be corrected. And then I went into the process of designing the cover, designing the interior, all of that, until it got here. Will you do a book tour or event when it's out? This is something that I have in the works. I really would like to do some kind of an in-person event. I have contacted, or rather my agent has contacted a couple of bookstores about it, so I will be sure to let you know if that's something that becomes more concrete in the future, but I really want to make it happen. Can you host a book club on Zoom once it's released? So I am very excited to announce that we are going to be doing a read along on Discord. So I will make a Discord server and we'll all get in there once we have our books, and we'll be reading like 5 chapters at a time, discussing in the chat. I'll be in there with you guys talking about things, answering questions, and we'll go through the whole book together like a little book club. And maybe we'll even do a little Zoom meeting at the end of it. That would be so fun. I don't know what the like person limit is on that, but I will for sure look into it. I think that is all that I have to tell you. I'm sure I will forget some things, and I will leave it in the description along with all of the links to pre-order. And I don't know, I guess I just want to say thank you guys for supporting me. I mean, already today I have been just blown away by all of your encouragement. And I know I've been yapping about this for like a year, so if it's not your jam, I am sorry. But thank you for putting up with it, and thank you guys for supporting a 20-year-old dream that just like, I'm pinching myself constantly, and I can't wait for it to come out, and I cannot wait to get Quinn and Evander's story into your hands. You can pre-order The Crown Prophecy down below. I love you guys a lot, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Bye!